EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, John McMullen, wrapping up a week here on a Football Friday. John, how you doing on this Friday morning?
Doing well. Stopped raining for 10 seconds, so
Yeah.
that'll brighten things up for a few people locally, at least. It's forever, so hopefully we can get to some nice summer-like weather. You're down the shore.
Yeah.
How was it?
Not too great down here right now, but hopefully anytime you're down here, it's a blessing, to be honest with you, John. So I'm all good with the weather, brother, but you are right. A little bit gloomy up here in the Northeast, so we'll see how it all shakes out. And we've had a great week, John, this week. We're closing it out here on a Football Friday. We've got a great show planned. The schedule, the much-anticipated schedule, John, came out. So we talked about that yesterday. We gave the wins and losses. I got one topic on that I want to go through. Just which teams that the Eagles will play this year have gotten better or that we anticipate will be better, and what teams will take a step back, if any. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But, John, there is some news in Eagle land. Brandon Hunt is gone. Another front office personnel. People called him highly respected in that Eagles front office. What can you tell us, John, about the loss of Brandon Hunt in the Eagles front office?
Yeah, I mean, good dude. Had the luxury of watching film with him a couple times over the past few years. Very smart, tremendous. And you've seen the roster building that has gone on in Philadelphia really since over the past 3 years when Brandon got here. He's a big part of that. Anthony Patch as well, who left for Las Vegas. So, we talked about Super Bowls and winning and the attrition you're going to have. And it not only happens on the field, it happens off the field. Coaching staff, Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, Kyle Valero. Now scouting staff with Anthony Patch and Brandon Hunt. But this was a guy that, he interviewed for the Patriots GM opening last year. So kind of knew it was coming at some points. One of the other parts of the Eagles' success is that, some of these guys are blocked because the guys in front of them aren't going anywhere. And they see that. So, basically people have ambition, and to go get that ambition, you got to go other places. And that's what's happened again. And Brandon leaves for Las Vegas, where he's, got a bigger role, better title, more money. And that's what happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, he was the senior director of scouting here with the Eagles. You mentioned he's become the vice president of player personnel in Vegas. So what would the comp be there, John, for the Eagles? Do they have a vice? They do have a vice president of player personnel.
They have two. They have vice president of player personnel. They have two assistant GMs. They sort of layer it. Chuck Walls came in at the same time as Brandon. As a matter of fact, he came from Green Bay that same year. And Alan Wolking, and what Howie does, sort of like one, in that case with the VPs of player personnel, one's expertise is college, and Alan was like the college guy, like he was the SEC guy for a long time. And one's expertise is the pro side. That's Chuck. But they both mix back and forth because he wants them all well-versed on all aspects. Same thing as it layers, it goes down. Brandon's more of a pro guy. Anthony was the college guy at the senior director level of scouting. So, but they mix and match. And you see that when they show some of the clips of some of the meetings, and guys will speak up, some of the pro guys like Brandon tremendously got to watch, like I said, film with college prospects, tremendously well-versed on that. Chuck Walls as well. So they're not just pro guys, how he set it up, that you have sort of expertise on both sides, but they mix together. And they'll have to repopulate a little bit here, and they'll certainly do that, whether it comes in-house from promotions, but they got a very deep bench on the scouting department, and we've seen that in the past. They lost. The reason why Brandon Hunt and Chuck Walls are here to begin with is because over that 2-year period, they lost Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown and Andy Weidel, and even Joe Douglas, if you want to go. So they had to repopulate it, and they'll do it again. But
it really is a front office factory, though, John. The Eagles. I mean, they put some people, man, in and out.
And you saw the success of the 3 years. I mean, that's what it was. 3 years since Brandon and Chuck Walls, and Chuck is still here. I've come in, and it's arguably 3 of the best years ever in overall from an Eagles standpoint. So, Howie's gotten pretty good at this, and they'll get smart people. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No news yet on if they've brought in any guys from outside the organization. I'm sure they'll make elevations within, but no news on that front yet, right?
No, not yet. Generally June-ish.
Yeah.
So it'll be coming pretty soon. But like I said, scouting works on a different calendar than players and coaches, which go from season to season. That's why you see all this movement this month. Personnel people go from draft to draft, their contracts. So that's kind of what happens. But in this case, Brandon got a pretty big promotion. So it's hard to, fault him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Congrats to Brandon Hunt, actually. Appreciate what he did for this Eagles team. The front office is a well-oiled machine in Philly. So anytime you lose a part, you do got to wonder what the replacement will look like. But they've been pretty good at filling those roles here so far. John, with the schedule now officially behind us, we will talk a little bit about that today. But what is next? Now, I know next week we have the NFL Spring League meeting. Takes place, I believe, in Minneapolis. It's the 20th and the 21st, which I don't have my calendar up, but I think that's next Tuesday and Wednesday, or let me double check what that is. 20th. Yeah, so next Tuesday and Wednesday. Probably we'll get a tush-push ban. We'll see. But after that, John, when is the next time these guys will be on the field, and we'll be able to talk a little bit about some of that?
Well, real quick, you're not going to get a tush-push ban. I do think you're going to get a ban of pushing, but I do think it's going to be extended to include all pushing.
Yeah, they're not going to just say tush-push is banned. Yeah.
We'll see how it shakes out. And again, we're all the people that are telling you this, including me, and I've told you this for a long time. We're basically, leaning on history. Generally, when the NFL table stuff, they want to get it passed, and they spend the time in between lobbying to get the 24 votes. So generally that's what happens, but we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
On-field OTAs for the Eagles start May 27th. So May 27th, 28th, and May 30th are their first grouping of 3. Then they have June 2nd, June 3rd, and June 5th, I believe, is their second. And then they have mandatory minicamp, which is June 10th, I believe. So
yeah, so we're getting pretty close. I mean, you have those, John. You got the OTAs you mentioned. They start May 27th, goes through June 5th. Then you have mandatory minicamp June 10th. Then there's a little break, right? And then you're in training camp at the end of July.
Yeah, that's and judging by the schedule, July 21st, 22nd is when the Eagles will open training camp. So, but that's not official. That's just based on prior history of the first preseason game and how long they're in camp before the first preseason game. It's coming. A little bit of break after that mini camp, and that's the big time off for the players and all that kind of stuff. But the on-field stuff and could be more, but it's hard to fault the Eagles. You could have 10 OTAs, on-field OTAs. They're only using 6 as of right now, and obviously you could have 3 days of mandatory minicamp, and the Eagles are only using 1 of those. So, but I've had this argument with Jody for years and years and years. It's hard to argue with their success. So I mean,
I don't care what my opinion is, John. It doesn't it doesn't matter. What they've done has worked
yeah,
way too well.
that's kind of where they are. I mean, hey, I still say, and I say it pretty consistently, if you left it just up to Nick Sirianni, they'd have 10 and 3. But because I've never met the football coach doesn't want to practice, and I still haven't met that guy. But it's an organizational
Yeah.
belief, and it's working.
It's worked. I would almost wonder if even Nick has changed. I mean, he's aging like the president, like Nick Sirianni, since he's been the head coach of the Eagles. I saw someone put together like a picture of the day he got hired versus now, and I'm like, yeah, it reminds me of the picture people.
Well,
used to put up with
and look at
Obama.
all the success he had, and that still happens.
I know. Well, listen, being successful can be very stressful. Sometimes more so than the alternative.
Yeah,
So.
I don't know about that. I think unsuccessful.
I don't know, man. Matt Eberflus, or no, he got hired. Who's a coach who's sipping mojitos on the beach right now?
Well, I mean, I don't mean from a personal standpoint. Yeah, maybe your career's over and you're relaxing. If you're well off or whatever. But I mean, if you want to be in the industry, if you want to be coaching, it's a heck of a lot better to be successful than unsuccessful. I mean, boy, it's been Chicago Bears. I'm going to call this Bears 3. I don't know if you saw the
we got to
Williams
talk about that. I'm ready.
I mean, my God, I mean, that organization is just an abject disaster, and there's plenty to blame from Caleb Williams.
Yeah, we'll talk. We're going to get into that. I do want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's much better to be successful if you want to be on the beach. Yeah, that's a different conversation. But if you want to coach, you'd rather be successful.
Yeah, well, no, I was being a little bit facetious, but I got you, John. I want to go into the end of the schedule. We're gonna have Caden Steele up in hour number 2. So looking forward to talking to Caden.
Looking forward to see if Caden can figure out a loss on this schedule.
Yeah, well, I was reviewing the schedule again. I kind of liked what you said, where obviously it's hard because of the you have a high caliber of opponent, 10 out, obviously 10 playoff teams last year. But I do think it could have been a lot worse the way they framed it. The one thing I don't like about it is there's no back-to-back home games, John, which is, I just don't love that. Yeah, it's weird. Like I never even thought that would happen to any team, but that I don't like about it. And I think an advantage, John, and you tell me what you think of this. I see the people in the chat talking about it. I brought it up yesterday on the National Football Show, but somebody put out a graphic of the most miles traveled for teams. Now, maybe that doesn't matter at all, but the Eagles are pretty low. They have like 15,000 miles traveled. There's teams that are like nearly 40,000 miles traveled. And I'm like, that'll weigh on you a little bit more. I don't know what you think of that.
Well, I don't think anybody likes traveling, but for the most part, it's a little bit easier for NFL teams than regular people. And again, that's one of the criticisms with the Eagles. They've gotten with the NFLPA report cards, the players aren't generally happy with the travel situation here, but other places it's better. But look, I always say Seattle, because of where they're located, is near the top every year.
Yeah, right.
Every year.
Really, all the West teams, John, are close to the top.
And when they were good, they won, and when they're not good, they don't win. So a lot of this stuff is. And again, we talk about how the NFL is set up and it's a parity-driven league. And, the idea is to pull the good teams down and pull the bad teams up and get everybody in this big, conglomeration right in the middle. And when you're in the middle, like all this stuff matters a lot. You got to travel, body clock games. Yeah. No back-to-back home games. When you're good, when you're really good, and you just went through it as Eagles fans, nothing matters. Road doesn't matter. Home doesn't matter.
Right.
Travel doesn't matter. You just win. Now, can you do that consistently year after year after year? It's very difficult. But if they're as good as they were last year, and look, on May 16th, I'll tell you they're not on paper. But that doesn't mean they won't be. If they're as good as they were last year, none of it matters. None of it. They're just going to roll over people.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Here's the graphic for those who are interested in seeing it. Miles traveled. You can see what it looks like there. So Eagles are at 15,924, around 16,000. The Chargers, the Rams, Seattle, Jacksonville. Chargers are up 37,000. Now, again, I don't know how much this means, but I do think, it does have some effect on, on players when you're out of, we talked about routine a little bit, John. You saw AJ Brown tweet up, this is normally me at 8:00 and he's sleeping. So that's why he doesn't like night games. And I can relate to that. I understand why people.
Nobody likes night games. Nobody likes night games. Nobody likes Thursday. Well, I shouldn't say that. Kelsey liked Thursday games for some weird reason. He's the one guy.
Because he doubled it up and then he got the weekend off.
Well, yeah, he didn't like to practice, which is understandable at his stage. But at that stage of his life, yeah, but generally, yeah, the routine part of it they don't like. But again, it didn't affect the Eagles. Not because they figured out a routine that was better. And maybe they did, but it's more of they just had better players.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think these factors have, small impact, if any.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. If it's a 9-18 versus an 8-8, yeah, all this stuff can matter. It's a 9-win team against an 8-win team. Every little thing could shift that. But if you're just better, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. No doubt about it, Johnny Mac. John, I do want to ask you just a general question. I don't know. What are we halfway through the offseason, you think? How many days are we until September 4th?
Well, we got June.
111
July,
Days.
August,
111 days, John, until September 4th.
I know we crossed past the 17-week portion. Because there's 17 games. So we're closer now. But yeah, that's
look, this is our optimistic Aussie, John. He's like, I love primetime games. That's because they're 12:30 p.m. Australia time.
Yeah.
1 o'clock or 3 in the morning for you. Anton, you're a small piece of the fan base, my friend, but I appreciate you checking in, Anton. But anyway, 111 days, John, from the start of the season. You always talk about how objective and, you're not a fan, so you don't really care whether they win or they lose. Objectively, how good of a chance you think this Eagles team has at repeating as Super Bowl champions?
I think they have a good chance. They're one of the few teams you could say are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Right. So once you're in that mix, then it's about how things unfold. Basically, how much do you get better during the season? How healthy are you at the right period, at the right periods? So all of that then comes into it. There's a lot of luck involved, even though people hate that term. And the stars have to align to a certain degree. But when you're in the dance, and that was Andy Reid's whole philosophy, you got a chance if you're clicking on all cylinders at the right time. And I can't even fathom the Eagles not making the playoffs unless there's that tremendous run of bad luck from an injury perspective. I can't even fathom them not making the playoffs. So then they're in the dance, and who's got more experience over the past couple of years? Kansas City. They know how to do it. They've been through it. So yeah, I think they have a legitimate chance.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at. I didn't, because I know you have, you've talked about some of the questions you have on defense, and I think they're fair, but I was wondering, how far did it take you? Do you think they're out of the legitimate conversation?
No.
I don't think you did. Right. So good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, I want to look at the schedule, and just real quick, I want to run down what teams you think are going to be better this year compared to what they were last year. What teams you think are going to be worse than they were last year? So I'll pull up a little graphic of the schedule. And then we'll kind of run through each team. I'll give you the record that they were last year, and then we'll see, because, I do think that's a big part of it. Everybody says, hey,